What's one of the most fun adventures you can have while playing tabletop role-playing games? Well, it's stealing something from somebody that deserves it. Heists are awesome, and they're actually really easy and fun to write. So I just wrapped up work on 2 adventures that I have written for the Land of Eam RPG. It is a really fun, lighthearted tabletop role-playing game that is described as the Muppets meets Lord of the Rings. If you're a fan of this channel and that kind of game sounds fun to you, do yourself a favor and check it out. There's a link down in the description to the pre-order page where you can get the 3 beautiful books. It's the game, the world setting, and an awesome illustrated bestiary of a bunch of different monsters. Really cool game, and I'm so excited about the 2 adventures that I got to write for it. So one of those adventures is a hex crawl through a dangerous coral reef with ghost pirates and krakens and all kinds of fun stuff. But I've been talking about hex crawls so much lately, I thought I'd mix it up and talk about my other adventure, which is called Hippogriff Heist. And as the name implies, it's a heist adventure. This one's all about sneaking aboard this riverboat and stealing back a precious item from this greedy goblin CEO guy. It's a classic heist story in a tabletop role-playing game format. It's a perfect little condensed sandbox for your players to get into all sorts of trouble in. So when I'm saying a heist adventure, I'm not really talking about game mechanics in any way. Obviously, there are systems that are more catered towards this style of play, like Blades in the Dark. And the examples I'm talking about in this video were specifically written for the Land of Eam RPG and that setting. But really, when you're writing your own heist, it super doesn't matter what game you're going to be running for that adventure. All right, let's jump right into it. Here are the 6 things you need to know to figure out and run your fun heist adventure. Number 1, you're going to need something to steal. 2, you're going to need someone and some place to steal it from. 3, you're going to need a scenario. 4, you're going to come up with some defenses, obstacles, and complications. 5, you're going to write up an ally or 2. And 6, you got to come up with a red herring. I suggest grabbing a sheet of paper and copying these 6 points down. And if you can write out a few sentences, make a couple of lists based on these 6 points, that's really all it takes to write out your own heist adventure. So let me explain. So the first thing you got to figure out is what the players are going to be stealing. This is what the whole adventure revolves around. In the Hippogriff Heist, the players are approached by B. Burgle Burger, it's a mouthful. He explains that this greedy goblin named Lester Gopher has stolen his family heirloom magic cookbook. Burgle wants his cookbook back and he wants revenge, but he needs the players' help to do it. So sometimes the thing the players are trying to steal is the reward for the heist. But in this case, Burgle doesn't have anything super valuable to give to the players, so instead he says anything else they find during the heist, any other valuables or treasure, they get to keep for themselves. So the heist is simple. Retrieve the cookbook, mission accomplished. I guess I should say spoilers ahead for this Hippogriff Heist adventure. Okay, so we already know a little bit about the second point, which is someone that the players will be stealing from. They are the mark of the heist. In this case, Lester Gopher, he's the CEO of the Hasty Hippogriff Shipping Company. He's stolen Burgle's cookbook for this magical jam recipe because it's the cheapest and easiest way to keep his fleet of flying hippogriffs happy and compliant. Now, where will the players be stealing this magical cookbook from? Lester keeps the magical cookbook hidden away somewhere on his private riverboat, the Spiffy Skull. The drawing going on right here is the map of the Spiffy Skull. I did all of the drawings for this adventure in Photoshop using my Wacom Cintiq. Now, obviously, you don't necessarily need a map if you're going to be running the heist yourself, but sometimes a visual element can be really helpful to players planning and reacting in the moment. If you need some advice on drawing maps, check out some of my other map drawing videos. Okay, now that we've got where the players are stealing from and who they're stealing from covered, let's move on to point number 3, the scenario. Now, I personally think it's a good idea to just introduce the players to a way they can get the heist started. With any sort of heist situation, the players are naturally going to want to plan as much as possible. So if you as the GM can start them off with some helpful information, they'll feel much more prepared and much more willing to get straight into the action. So in my adventure, Burgle sets up the scenario by telling the players that Lester is having this riverboat cruise where he's inviting a bunch of other CEOs and aristocrat type people to wine and dine them. Lester is going to be distracted by all of these other people that he's trying to strike up business deals or whatever CEOs do during these types of parties. So it's the perfect time for the players to get aboard the riverboat and find the cookbook. Now, to take it one step further and really get the players going down this starting path, Burgle has forged an invitation for them to get aboard the ship and has also offered to use some of his gnome magic to disguise the players as royals and business people, but he warns them not to get wet because that will make the disguise wear off. And that leads us to point number 4, defenses, obstacles, and complications. Now it's time to make a list of all the things that will get in the way of the players. This is the stuff they have to overcome and outthink if they want to pull off this heist. So obviously the players don't want to get wet. That can be tricky on a riverboat in the middle of the water. Of course, Lester will have guards posted around the boat in various locations. They're these big tough reptilian dudes called Dratch that will throw any troublemakers overboard into the river. Lester also has his Guardvark Chuck, who can sniff out trouble on the boat. Then there are the other guests at the party, people who might see through the player's disguise and alert an alarm. One of these other guests might even be a person that is also trying to steal the cookbook, a rival thief. All of these things can be obstacles to the players, but if they're smart, they can also use them to their advantage. They can mingle and talk with these other guests and maybe even use them as a distraction at some point during the heist. And speaking of distractions, there's lots of things going on this riverboat to distract the players. There's gambling, there's music, there's food, other NPCs. Like I said, lots of things to get the players into trouble, but also lots of opportunities to make mischief and help with their thieving activities. So one really important note when making your list of defenses and obstacles, you always want to allow your players to fail forward. Now, fail forward is kind of this weird corporate term that gets thrown around a lot in offices and stuff, but it really applies to tabletop role-playing games because you want your players to be able to make a few mistakes or have a few bad rolls and not bring the whole heist crashing down to a stop. No matter what, there's going to be complications that come up as this heist is unfolding, and this is the really fun part of the adventure. So make a list of a few possible outs you can give players. So maybe the first guard that catches on to them lets it be known that they could be easily bribed. Or maybe if one of their disguises wears off and Lester notices them, he mistakes them for a member of the staff and tells them to get back below deck into the kitchen right away. Or maybe you could have one of the guests that was invited to the party stick up for the players when they get found out initially. And that is where point number 5 comes in, allies. I think there should always be at least one person on the inside that's willing to help the players. Maybe it's someone the players already know, or maybe it's someone that they can discover as the adventure unfolds. In my adventure, there is one guest at this party who the players could figure out would be sympathetic to their cause. And then there is the chef, the caterer of this riverboat cruise party. He's upset that Lester is making all these demands and treating him so poorly and paying him really bad. So this chef will gladly disrupt the party and be on the side of the players if it means they rob this greedy CEO blind. Next up is point number 6, the red herring. Every good heist needs a big surprise, something that throws the players for a loop and forces them to change their plans in some way. Now, up until this point, you as the game master can decide how much of this information that you're figuring out you're willing to share with the players up front before they go on the heist. But the red herring, the big switch up, the big surprise should always be hidden from the players. players. It's something that they have to discover on their own. So maybe the mark has some trick up their sleeve that keeps the players away from their prize, or maybe one of the players' allies does a double cross on them. In my adventure, the players discover that Lester has a vault below deck in the hull of the ship filled with treasure. All they need is a simple 3-digit passcode to unlock the door to this vault, but the vault is the red herring. Lester actually keeps the magical cookbook locked away in his office on the upper deck of the riverboat. It's a simple misdirect that adds a fun layer of complication to the heist. You know, just when the players think that they've found the vault, gotten the treasure, and are ready to escape, they realize that they're actually back to square one. It's devious. And those are the 6 points. It might seem a little anticlimactic. I don't know which one it is. But yeah, we're not writing a satisfying conclusion to this heist adventure because the fun of playing tabletop role-playing games is letting the players figure it out and make it their own story. You know, will they pull off the heist and escape with arms full of treasure, or will they get caught and be chucked overboard and let down their new friend Burgle? So yeah, if you can fill out this list of 6 points, you will have created your very own heist sandbox for your players to get into all sorts of trouble in. Let me know in the comments if you've run a fun heist TTRPG. I'd love to hear what you or your players have gotten into. If you would like to support the channel and get monthly tabletop role-playing game adventures and guidebooks, check out my Patreon. Right now I'm working on a 3-issue sandbox adventure that is inspired by old school NES RPGs like the original Dragon Quest and Final Fantasy games. And check out the Land of Eam. It is going to be a really awesome, fun, easy to run RPG. I'm really proud of the 2 adventures I've written for the game. I just turned them in. I'm not totally sure when they're going to be available, but they're part of the pre-order. Okay, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. See ya!